Hi everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about all the classics that I want to pick up in 2022, but before we get into that, I first want to wrap up the sci-fi genre. So if you are sick and tired of seeing all of these 2021 in review, 2022 let's look at the future type of videos, I'm sorry, I love making TBRs, I love making lists, I love setting goals for myself, and I think that I've overdone myself this year, especially with making videos about these lists and goals. So this is the last one that's going to come on the channel. After that, I just have the stats and goals overview of 2021 video that's going to be uploaded later this week. After that, more interesting videos are coming your way, I promise. Now, for this one, I don't know if everybody is aware of this, but at the start of my channel, I created a series called the Expanding My Horizon series, which is a very difficult name just to say that each year I am going to try a new category, genre, age range of books that I normally don't read. And I vlog my experience or I leave a review for each of those books just so you can hop on and follow the journey. And then at the end of the year, I do a wrap-up, like I will do now for the sci-fi genre, and tell you whether or not I am going to continue with that genre or type of book, and whether or not my expectations were met, or if there were some surprises. So for 2022, I'm going to pick classics, and I am going to buddy read a lot of those with Taylor over at Made Between the Pages, so more about that in a second. But for now, in 2021, I picked sci-fi as a genre. And after reading a lot of sci-fi books in 2021, I've come to the conclusion that if you like sci-fi, if you like fantasy, you will most probably like sci-fi, so maybe that was a dumb choice. On the other hand, I was really expecting to not like sci-fi, because I don't like if in my fantasy books I have sci-fi elements. And because of that, I thought that it was just the sci-fi elements that I don't like. It turns out that I just don't like the mix. I don't like if the two are mushed together. If we have fantasy here, sci-fi here, and they don't connect with each other, I'm fine. Just, I don't want sci-fi in my fantasy, I don't want a lot of fantasy in my sci-fi, it turns out. Although, I read Dune, and Dune, a lot of people say, is sci-fi fantasy. It's more heavy on the sci-fi side, so if we then have a little bit of fantasy trickling in, I'm fine with that, but my fantasy needs to be fantasy 100%, no sci-fi interference. So, I'm really happy that I did try sci-fi, because now I am going to read a lot more, and I will tell you a little bit about my plans for 2022, but in 2021 I read Red Rising, the original trilogy, as well as the fourth book in the overall series called Iron Gold. I did not like Red Rising and Iron Gold. I loved Golden Sun, and I also really enjoyed Morning Star. So this is the series where a couple of the books came on my most disappointing books of 2021 list, and a couple of those books came on my favorite books of 2021 list. So this was definitely a series of ups and downs for me, but the space opera aspect, which really only comes into play in the second book, was something that I really enjoyed. So I do know that space opera books is something that I will probably enjoy and need to pick up some more. Then I tried Dune, like I said, classic sci-fi, really enjoyed it, especially the themes that were being discussed, but also Paul and Jessica just as a character. And because of these two very interesting characters, I do want to continue with the series and at least read the first trilogy. Then I read This Is How You Lose the Time War and A Psalm for the Wild Build, so two novellas. This Is How You Lose the Time War it's sci-fi because there's a time war, so you have time travel, but other than that, it didn't really feel like sci-fi. It was more the introduction of different themes and talking about these themes. It was more a love story than anything else, and if you're looking for these sci-fi elements, you're not going to get them in that novella. So even though I loved that novella and I loved the purple prose, I loved the beautiful writing style, in terms of subgenres of sci-fi, I don't really think that that's my favorite one. Now, A Psalm for the Wild Build by Becky Chambers was cozy fantasy. It was very hopeful fantasy towards the future, and I loved that one. So I'm definitely going to pick up some more Becky Chambers, because I have heard that that's kind of her trademark in the sci-fi genre. So yes, definitely something that I will enjoy. Apart from then the series like the Red Rising series and Dune that I want to continue in, I do have The Martian on my TBR, and I also have Parable of the Sower on my TBR. I would like to try the Expanse series, and if I'm not mistaken, Empire of Silence is a pick for the Shelf Space Book Club, I think in March or April, and if that's the case, I do want to hop on that train as well and hopefully read along that first book in the series together with other people. I have also gotten a ridiculous amount of sci-fi books from a friend of mine. I got all of them for free, and a lot of them are written by Hamilton, I don't know who that is. I have zero knowledge of the sci-fi genre, but apparently that guy has written a lot of sci-fi books. I now own 10 or 15 of them, and I will definitely read them, maybe not in 2022, but if that's not the case, then in 2023. So yes, trying the sci-fi genre has definitely altered my reading taste, and I'm very glad that in the end I ended up enjoying it. Now, for classics. So I already told you that I'm going to read classics in 2022, and most of them will be buddy reads together with Taylor over at Made Between the Pages. She is reading one classic per month, and I will share her schedule in the description box down below. By the way, all of the sci-fi books that I talked about, most of them I have a vlog or a review for, and I will link that in the description box down below as well if you're interested. Now, for those classics, like I said, she's going to read one per month, and I am going to join her if I'm interested in the classic. I don't think that I will join her for all of them, because my idea was never to read 12 classics this year, and not all of them I own, not all of them I'm quite interested in. So I'm going to share the ones that I will be reading for sure, if I have time and if nothing very unexpectedly happens. And then in the description box down below, you can see all of the books that Taylor is reading, and definitely subscribe to her channel if you're interested in any of them. For most of them, I think that we do plan to do live shows if it's feasible, because all of us are in different time zones, and I am reading with Taylor because she's hosting it, but a couple of other booktubers are joining us as well. So if we can make it work, we will probably do a couple of live shows for these books as well. So keep your eyes open for that. Now, one that I am definitely going to read, because this is the pick of January and I'm currently reading it at the moment, and that is The Picture of Dorian Gray. Can't say too much about it, and I will go over these quite quickly so that, you know, this video doesn't take 20 minutes. Then I also have To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. This was a book that I got from my brother a couple of years ago for my birthday, and I still haven't read it. So I feel like I should get to it, especially if I'm going to read a lot of classics in 2022. Then I have The Man in the Iron Mask by Alexander Dumas. I don't really know if I'm going to pick this one up because it seems like it's a very big book. My version is over 600 pages, and the font here is like absolutely ridiculous how tiny this is. So I don't know if I can get to that one, but that is one that has captured my interest, and maybe if I end up liking classics at the end of 2022, this might be on my pile for beyond this year, because yes, big one. Another one, and I think that this one is one that I'm more interested in than in the Three Musketeers one, and that is The Hunchback of the Notre Dame by Victor Hugo. So yeah, French classic. I have not read a lot of French classics, but the ones that I have picked up, like Madame Bovary, I really enjoyed. So this one, plus I saw the Disney movie, and I know that this one is probably going to be a lot more emotional and not as happy ending as the Disney movie. I still want to really read that one. I have then Dracula, of course. I think that this one is also picked by Taylor, so we are going to read this one in October. And I also have Frankenstein. Now, these are two smaller books. I think that it will also be nice if I read these two in one vlog. So if I can make it work, I will probably read those two in October. And then we are going to read a lot of Jane Austen novels. So I'm probably going to say some stupid thing. No, Emma is a Jane Austen novel. And we're also going to read Pride and Prejudice. And I am going to read Sense and Sensibility together with my friend Brandie, I think in March of this year. But I will link the exact date in the description box down below. So Jane Austen is an author that I'm going to read a lot of this year. Then another book that Taylor is going to read, and I was quite interested in as well. I think that she's going to read this one, and that is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. So I have these big bind-ups. I don't even know if I will be able to read from these, but they are quite floppy, so I mean, that's a plus. I have seen the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio, if I'm not mistaken, of The Great Gatsby. I didn't really love that movie, so I don't really know if I will like the book, but at the very least, I'm going to try. And then an author that I just really want to try because I think that I will like the vibe and the atmosphere. And I'm saying one author, but there are three because the Bronte sisters. So I think that I want to at least try Jane Eyre and Wuthering Heights, because I watched the miniseries of Wuthering Heights and I really like that one. And just Jane Eyre in general, I know what the story is about. I know the atmosphere, it's a little bit darker. So I think that I want to give her or these authors a try as well. But we will see, because I already talked about quite a bit, and normally I want to try around 5 books for a category of books that I want to try out. But for classics, I knew that 5 was probably not going to be enough because classics is very broad. You have all kinds of different genres in there. So it was going to be difficult to only pick 5. I now think that I have around 10 maybe, which we will see if it can happen. Please let me know in the description box down below if you read a lot of classics and which of the ones that I showed you here are your favorites, or if there are some that you think don't waste your time on it. And also let me know if you are interested in joining a buddy read for any of these. As always, I hope that you enjoyed the video and see you next time. Bye!